My brother's lawyer had just called me emotionally unstable when their own witness stopped answering him. Robert Hale was halfway through describing the night I blocked my mother's transfer from St. Joseph Medical Center when he looked at me for the first time. Not glanced, looked, his forehead tightened. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "were you Major Brooks in Kabul?" Jason's attorney froze with one hand on the lectern. My brother did not. He leaned toward his lawyer and whispered something sharp enough to make the man raise a finger without looking away from Robert. "Mr. Hale," the attorney said, "please answer only the question asked." Robert kept his eyes on me. "I am trying to." The judge looked over her glasses. "Do you know Miss Brooks?" Robert exhaled through his nose. "I knew a Major Natalie Brooks, Army Logistics, Kabul." I did not move. There are moments when your past walks into a room before you are ready to meet it. This was one of them. Jason had spent the morning telling the court I was the dangerous variable in our mother's life. That I had been gone too long. That I came home after her stroke and started questioning everything. Her medications, her bills, her transportation, her house. His decisions, he had records showing I raised my voice at a hospital. A nurse's note saying I refused to let my mother leave on schedule. A family statement describing me as commanding, volatile, and unable to separate military habits from civilian life. All of it contained some truth. That was what made it useful. The attorney turned back to Robert. "Did Miss Brooks interfere with the scheduled transfer?" "Yes." "Did she raise her voice?" "Yes." "Did the ambulance leave late because of her?" Robert paused, 11 minutes late. Jason's lawyer nodded. "Thank you." Then Robert added, "And if she hadn't stopped it, Mrs. Brooks would have been transported with the wrong medication list." The attorney's face changed. "Mr. Hale, she caught it before my dispatcher did." Silence moved through the courtroom. Jason stared at Robert. I stared at the table, because I knew what came next. If Robert remembered Kabul, he might remember the convoy. If he remembered the convoy, he might remember Sergeant Ellis. And if Jason's lawyer had done his homework, the story he had spent all morning telling the judge was about to become more complicated. Not easier, complicated, that mattered, because I had not come to court to prove I was fearless. I had come to stop my brother from turning our mother's silence into permission. 8 months earlier, I was standing in the cereal aisle of a grocery store outside Denver when Jason called. He did not say hello. Mom had a stroke. 3 words changed the shape of the room. A child behind me was asking for marshmallow cereal. A cartwheel squeaked every few seconds. Suddenly none of it belonged to the same world. "Where is she? St. Joseph? Is she conscious?" "Yes." "Can she talk?" A pause. "Not really. I left the cart where it was." By the time I reached the hospital, Jason had already been there 9 hours. That mattered. He had handled the ambulance, the emergency room, the neurologist, the insurance calls. He had called our aunt, Mom's neighbor, her church friend, and eventually me. Jason looked 10 years older than the last time I saw him. His shirt was wrinkled. There was dried coffee on one cuff. "You made it. Not warm, not cruel, just tired. How is she?" "Alive." He rubbed both hands over his face. "They say the stroke hit language harder than movement." That was how I learned aphasia in a way that mattered. Mom could understand more than she could say. She could nod, shake her head, point, write a few words. But sentences seemed to break apart before they reached her mouth. When I entered the room, she looked at me and started crying. So did I. We were Brooks women. We had always been better at handing each other tissues than admitting we needed them. Her right hand moved across the blanket. She pointed at my coat, then at the hospital bag on the chair. Inside were her glasses, a paperback mystery, socks, and a small red ceramic hummingbird with one chipped wing. I had made it when I was 9 in a community pottery class. The glaze was uneven, the beak was too thick, one wing chipped when we moved years later. Mom kept it anyway. For more than 30 years, it sat near the kitchen window above the sink. I held it up. "You made Jason bring this?" Mom nodded. Jason leaned against the wall. She wouldn't leave the house without it. "You went back for it?" She kept pointing at the window on her phone. That was the first moment I understood how much had happened before I arrived. Jason knew what her gestures meant. He knew which drawer held her medication list, which neighbor had a spare key, which drinks she would refuse. I knew none of that. I knew how to move a convoy through damaged roads. I knew how to reroute equipment when weather closed an airfield. I did not know where my mother kept her blood pressure cuff. Jason had stayed. I had left, not because I did not love her. For 18 years, leaving had been the shape of my life. Deployments, training, assignments, moves. Even after active service, my logistics job kept me on planes more than I liked to admit. I told myself calling every Sunday counted. Sometimes it did. Sometimes it did not. The first 2 weeks after the stroke, Jason and I worked well together. He handled what he knew. I handled systems, medications, appointments, transportation, insurance. A whiteboard appeared in Mom's room with times, names, phone numbers, and arrows in my handwriting. Jason looked at it one morning. "You turned her recovery into a supply operation." "It's working." That wasn't a compliment. There it was. The first crack. To me, responsibility meant making sure nothing failed. To Jason, it meant being the person physically there when it did. Mom came home 6 weeks later. Jason had installed grab bars, moved a bed downstairs, arranged meals, and used his medical transport company for several appointments. At the time, I thought that was convenient. I did not question the invoices. Not yet. 3 days after Mom came home, Jason slid a folder across the kitchen table. "I need her to sign these updated power of attorney forms," he said. The old document already named Jason as primary agent and me as backup. The new one covered banking, property, health coordination, and contracts. "Does she understand all of this right now?" I asked. Jason's jaw tightened. "Don't start," I asked a question. "And I have been answering questions for 6 weeks. Mom tapped the table once, hard. Both of us stopped. She pointed to herself, then the papers, then shook her head. Jason said, "She means she's tired." I said, "Maybe." "What does that mean?" "It means we should let her tell us." Mom looked from him to me, then reached for the red hummingbird. She ran her thumb over the chipped wing. That was when I should have understood the real fight. Not whether Jason loved our mother, he did. Not whether I loved her. I did too. The fight was going to be over something more dangerous. Who got to translate her silence? The next month was when Jason and I stopped pretending we were on the same side. Not because of one dramatic fight, because of 100 small decisions. Mom wanted oatmeal. Jason said she needed protein. Mom pointed at the blue sweater. Jason brought the gray one because it was warmer. Mom wrote home after therapy. Jason said she meant she was tired. Sometimes he was right, sometimes I was. That was the problem. We had both become too comfortable speaking for her. Jason had been doing it longer. For nearly 2 years before the stroke, he took Mom to cardiology appointments, fixed the furnace when it died in January, handled an insurance dispute after a pipe burst, and drove her after she stopped driving at night. I sent flowers on Mother's Day, I called Sundays, I visited when leave or work allowed. Those things were not equal. I knew that. Jason knew I knew it. Neither of us said it until I questioned a transportation invoice. Mom had gone to occupational therapy twice that week. Jason's company billed both trips. The amount was not outrageous, just higher than the private wheelchair service the hospital had given me as a comparison. "Why is your company charging her this much?" "Because we transported her." "I can see that. Then what are you asking?" "Why it costs almost 40% more." He shut off the kitchen faucet. "You really want to do this?" "I want to understand the bill." "No, you want to audit me." The word landed between us. I did not deny it. "For 2 years I have been the one dealing with everything," he said. Appointments, repairs, calls in the middle of the night. Contracts I missed because Mom needed me. I believe you. That is not the same as being here. No, that stopped him for half a second. Then he laughed. "You get to come home after 18 years, and suddenly you're in charge." I never said I was. You don't have to. You make lists. You question every appointment. You act like everybody is one mistake away from failing inspection. I looked at the invoice. "Is the rate standard?" "There it is." "What? You don't know how to be a sister anymore." That landed. He explained his drivers were trained, the vans were equipped, and they waited through appointments instead of dropping patients off. Reasonable. Then show me the rate sheet. His eyes narrowed. "Why? Because Mom is paying. She is my mother. She is also the client. I am not stealing from her." "I didn't say you were. You didn't have to." Mom entered using her walker. She looked at both of us, then wrote one word on the notepad clipped to it. "Stop." We did, for that night. A week later, Jason filed a petition asking the court to appoint him as Mom's guardian and conservator. He did not tell me first. A process server handed me the papers outside my office. The petition said Mom could no longer reliably manage medical decisions, contracts, property, or finances. It said Jason had been her primary caregiver and financial agent for years. Also true. Then it said I had returned after a prolonged absence and created instability in the established care environment. That bothered me because I could see how someone might believe it. Attached were statements. A neighbor said Mom became distressed during one argument between Jason and me. A nurse documented that I challenged medication timing. A relative said I had always been intense after deployments. Then came the hospital transportation incident. Jason described it as me blocking a medically approved transfer because I did not trust the care team. No mention of the medication list, not yet. The petition asked for authority over residents, medical coordination, bank accounts, real estate, contracts, and nearly every major decision Mom could no longer make quickly. I read that section 3 times, then I drove to Mom's house. Half the dining room had become stacks of boxes labeled winter clothes, books, kitchen, photos. Jason came from the hallway carrying packing tape. We need to simplify. Did Mom decide that? We've discussed it. With her, he stared at me. Who else would I discuss it with? The kitchen windowsill was empty. Where's the hummingbird? Packed. I found it wrapped in newspaper between 2 bowls. For 30 years, Mom had chosen where that bird belonged. Now it was in a box because someone else had decided the room was already becoming the past. I carried it to her. Do you want this packed? She shook her head. Jason exhaled. She changes her mind every hour. Mom's face hardened. Do you want the house sold? I asked. She stared at me, then wrote carefully, not yet. Jason read over my shoulder. That does not mean she can manage a house. No, it means not yet. And when the roof needs replacing, when she falls again, when she forgets a bill. Then we solve that problem. I have been solving problems while you were gone. There it was, 18 years of accounting. You're right, I said. You stayed, I didn't. You did things I should have been here to help with. For 1 second, his expression softened. Then I said, but staying does not give either of us the right to decide what Mom means before she finishes trying to tell us. The softness disappeared. Jason picked up the petition. The court can decide that. That was when I understood. He was no longer asking me to trust him. He was asking a judge to make trust unnecessary. The first person who told me my mother might still be able to make meaningful decisions was not a lawyer. It was her speech therapist, Dr. Elena Ruiz. I met her 2 days after Jason filed the petition. Mom worked through picture cards while Dr. Ruiz waited for whatever path around the damaged language still remained. Sometimes she found the word, sometimes she wrote it. Sometimes she pointed, sometimes she gave up and swore. That last part sounded exactly like my mother. After the session, I asked, does she understand what's happening? Dr. Ruiz folded her hands. That's too broad. I liked her immediately. Can she understand a choice? Some choices, yes. Can she understand money? Possibly, if the information is clear and she isn't rushed. Can she decide where she wants to live? She may be able to express a preference. Understanding every consequence is a different question. So aphasia doesn't automatically mean incapacity. No, aphasia is a language disorder. A person may understand more than they can express. Understand more than they can express, it described Mom. Jason did not like Dr. Ruiz's answer. She sees Mom 45 minutes at a time. And you see her every day. Exactly, that doesn't make you a neurologist. And 18 years moving pallets doesn't make you one either. Fair. Instead of arguing, I asked him for the financial records. Not because I had proof of anything, because his petition requested conservatorship. If Jason wanted control over Mom's money, I wanted to understand how he was already using the authority he had. He gave me 3 months of statements. I asked for 12. He gave me a spreadsheet. I asked for invoices. You've decided I'm stealing. No. What have you decided? That if you're asking a court to give you control over everything, the numbers should survive questions. He hated that answer. I could see why. I had spent years believing scrutiny protected good systems. 3 days later, Jason sent another folder of invoices and household expenses. Most looked ordinary, some did not. His company had billed Mom for 21 medical transports over 4 months. Several were legitimate. I had been present for 2. But 6 charges included a medical coordination fee. I called the number on the invoice. What does the coordination fee cover? Scheduling, waiting time, communication with the facility. Is it charged to every client? A pause, depends on the contract. Can you send me my mother's contract? I'll need to ask Mr. Brooks, of course. Then I found a recurring monthly payment to Jason's company labeled Care Management. Not Transport Management, I showed it to him that evening. What is this? I coordinate her care. You're already her agent under the power of attorney. So you're paying your own company for work you're doing as her son and agent. My staff handles scheduling, billing, follow-up. How much? It's on the statement. That wasn't my question. He looked at me. You come in here acting like conflict of interest means fraud. I didn't say fraud, you don't have to. Mom was in the living room watching television with captions on. I lowered my voice. Then help me understand it. Jason said Mom's care had cost his company contracts and staff time. And you're entitled to reimbursement for legitimate services, I said. His face changed. That was not the answer he expected. But if Mom is paying your company, there has to be a clean line between helping her and helping yourself. She trusted me before you came back, I know, and now every decision becomes a hearing. No, the decisions you want legal authority over become a hearing. He shook his head. You don't understand what staying costs. Before I could answer, Mom tapped the arm of her chair. She held up her notepad. Money. Jason walked over. It's fine, Mom. She frowned and pointed at me. I sat beside. You want to know what we're talking about? She nodded. Jason exhaled. Natalie, don't dump financial details on her. For once I wanted Mom to answer for herself. I wrote, your money pays Jason's company for rides. Mom read it and nodded. Then your money also pays his company each month for care management. She read that longer. Jason said that covers people who coordinate your appointments. Mom lifted one finger. Wait, then she wrote how much? $1,800 a month, Jason said. Mom stared at the number after I wrote it down. Then I said rides. Jason answered immediately. We talked about care too. At the hospital, you said yes. Mom shook her head. Hard. I felt the room moving toward another argument. So I stopped talking and slid the pad back to her. She wrote paper. She pointed toward the hallway to the desk where she kept household files. Jason opened the drawer. Inside was the old power of attorney, signed 5 years before the stroke. Jason was primary agent. I was backup. Attached to it was a handwritten note in Mom's blocky script. Jason helps with bills. House stays mine. Ask before selling anything big. Not a legal amendment, not enough to cancel the power of attorney. But it was something. Mom tapped the page, then herself. Jason said, I know what you wanted then. Mom's eyes sharpened. Then, one dangerous word, because Jason's petition depended on the idea that what Mom wanted now was no longer something the court could reliably hear. That night, I spread the statements across the kitchen table. The red hummingbird was back on the windowsill. Mom had put it there herself. I listed transportation charges, care management fees, property taxes, repairs. Then a line near the bottom of a bank statement stopped me. A large deposit, not insurance, not retirement, not an account I recognized. The date was 3 weeks before Jason filed for guardianship. The description contained the name of an LC I had never seen. I searched it. The company was new, and its registered agent shared an address with the man financing Jason's vehicle fleet. I stared at the screen, then at the packed boxes in the dining room. Then at the empty shelf where Mom kept her property records. For the first time, I stopped asking whether Jason was charging too much for rides. I started asking what else he had already moved. By the hearing, those questions had become document demands. An appraisal, an evaluator's report, and an independent financial review. Then Robert Hale recognized me and Kabul walked back into the room. Robert Hale kept looking at me as if he were comparing the woman at counsel table with someone he had last seen through dust and diesel smoke. Jason's attorney stepped closer. Mr. Hale, you testified that Ms. Brooks delayed Mrs. Brooks's transfer by 11 minutes. Yes, and raised her voice. Yes, would you describe her behavior as calm? No, Jason shifted in his seat. Then why did the transfer leave late? Because Major Brooks found a medication discrepancy. The attorney's jaw tightened. Miss Brooks is not a major now. Robert looked at him. Fine, Miss Brooks, what discrepancy? The discharge packet listed warfarin. I looked up. The hospital chart had already changed Mrs. Brooks to apixaban after the neurology consult. The transport packet still showed the old anticoagulant. The judge leaned forward. Was the transport company responsible for administering medication? No, Your Honor, but the receiving facility used our packet to reconcile medication on arrival. So the error could have followed the patient, yes. Jason's attorney asked, "Did you verify that?" I called dispatch. Dispatch called the nurse. The nurse corrected the packet. After Ms. Brooks shouted at staff, "Yes, so both things can be true." Robert looked at me. Yes, that was the problem with honest witnesses. They did not arrive to save you. They made the record harder to misuse. Jason's attorney changed direction. "You referred to Ms. Brooks as Major Brooks. Where did you know her?" "Kabul." "What year?" 2012. "Your role?" "Transportation warrant officer." "And hers?" "Logistics officer." The attorney checked his notes. "Were you involved in a convoy incident near Camp Phoenix?" Robert's expression changed. "Yes." My hands went cold. The red hummingbird was at Mom's house, but I saw it anyway. The chipped wing, my mother's thumb over the broken edge. A small thing kept for 30 years because being damaged had never made it worthless. Did that incident involve Sergeant Daniel Ellis? Every sound flattened, the ventilation system, a chair moving. The court reporter's keys. Sergeant Ellis had been 26. He had a wife in Texas and a newborn daughter whose photograph he carried inside a plastic sleeve. He was in the second vehicle. I knew because I had assigned the order. "Miss Brooks?" The judge sounded far away. My fingers had locked around the table. One thumbnail pressed into my index finger. Jason's attorney did not need to say anything. My body was already making his argument for him. "Miss Brooks, are you able to continue?" I tried to answer. Nothing came. Not because I did not understand, because language had become a narrow doorway, and everything inside me was trying to push through at once. For one terrible second, I understood my mother better than I ever had. I knew what I wanted to say. My mouth could not carry it. "Ressus," the judge nodded. 10 minutes. In the restroom, I ran cold water over my hands. A crescent mark showed where my thumbnail had broken the skin. The convoy had left at 0630. We were moving replacement medical equipment and personnel between secured locations. The primary route had closed after an overnight blast. I approved an alternate. It was not reckless. It was not perfect. Those are different things. 41 minutes into the movement, the second vehicle struck an improvised explosive device. Sergeant Ellis died before evacuation. 2 others were injured. The investigation found no misconduct. The route had been cleared based on available information. The movement had been authorized. None of that changed the fact that I had written the vehicle order. For years, whenever someone told me there was nothing else I could have done, I heard the part they did not say. "You still chose." There was a knock. "Natalie?" "Claire Bennett, Mom's court-appointed attorney." "I am fine." "No, you're not. I can continue." That wasn't what I said. Claire represented Mom's stated wishes, not mine. She did not owe me comfort. "You do not have to pretend this had no effect on you. Jason's lawyer wants the court to think I am unstable. Then give the court something more useful than pretending." I looked at myself in the mirror. 41, former major. A woman who could reroute medical supplies through damaged roads and still forget to call her mother when she had promised. A woman who could catch a medication error in 11 minutes and still lose her voice at one dead soldier's name. Both things were true. That did not make them the same fact. When court resumed, Jason did not look triumphant. He looked worried. For me or for what my reaction had done to his case, I could not tell. The judge asked if I needed more time. "No, Your Honor." Jason's attorney stood. "Given what the court just observed, this reaction is relevant to Ms. Brooks's request to influence decisions concerning Mrs. Brooks." I stood. "It is relevant." Everyone looked at me. I reacted badly. That part is true. Then I looked at the judge. But an emotional reaction is not an accounting. The room went still. My brother's petition asks the court to treat 2 questions as one: whether I am emotionally comfortable to watch, and whether he properly used our mother's money and authority. Jason's attorney started to object. The judge lifted a hand. "Let her finish. I am not asking the court to appoint me because I once held rank. I am not asking you to ignore what happened. I am asking that my reaction not replace the financial record." The judge nodded. "Understood." Robert returned to the stand. "Did Major Brooks become visibly distressed after the convoy incident?" Jason's attorney asked. "Yes." "Did she continue making operational decisions?" "Yes." "Did you ever see her behave unpredictably afterward?" Robert thought. "Not unpredictably. What word would you use?" "Controlled." "Today looked controlled to you?" "No." Robert did not soften it. Then he added, "Today looked human." The attorney objected. The judge sustained it, but the words had already landed. Robert's testimony did not prove I should control my mother's life. It did not erase the fact that I had frozen. It separated a wound from a pattern. When he stepped down, the next exhibits came out: bank records, company invoices, the deed transfer. The case was leaving Kabul and moving toward the part Jason had hoped no one would examine closely enough. For the first time that day, I was grateful, not because the past made me look strong. Because it forced me to stop pretending strength meant never being seen shaking. The next witness was not mine. That helped. Dr. Priya Shah was a court-appointed evaluator who had spent 3 hours with Mom over 2 visits. She had no history with Jason, none with me. No reason to care who had stayed, who had left, who wore a uniform, or who missed Christmas. Claire called her. "Dr. Shah, in your opinion, does Evelyn Brooks lack all capacity to make personal decisions?" No, Jason's attorney sat straighter. "Mrs. Brooks has significant expressive aphasia and mild cognitive impairment affecting processing speed, Dr. Shah said. Those are not the same as global incapacity. Can she manage complex finances independently? No. Can she understand every medical decision without assistance? Not consistently. Can she express reliable preferences? Yes, such as where she wants to live, who she wants present during care. Which routines matter, whether she wants particular property sold. She needs simplified explanations and more time, but her preferences have been consistent." Claire asked about the house. Dr. Shah checked her notes. She wrote, "Stay now, maybe later smaller." I looked at Jason. He looked at the table. Did she understand that maintaining the house costs money? Yes. Did she still oppose an immediate sale? What about the red ceramic hummingbird? Jason's lawyer frowned. Dr. Shah almost smiled. She was quite clear. It stays with her. A small sound came from Mom's side of the courtroom. Not quite a laugh. Close, Claire continued. Would you recommend either adult child receive unrestricted authority over Mrs. Brooks? No, that surprised both of us. Why? Because both children tend to answer for her before she finishes communicating. I felt that one. So your concern includes Natalie? Yes. What do you recommend? Supported decision-making for personal matters where feasible. Limited guardianship only if necessary, and because there is an active financial dispute involving an agent who transacts with his own company, independent review before any conservatorship authority is assigned. Jason's attorney stood. You are not accusing my client of financial misconduct. No, you are not a forensic accountant, no, and Mrs. Brooks cannot independently manage sophisticated transactions. Yes, so someone must assist her. Yes, would the son who has managed her affairs for years be an obvious candidate? Obvious is not the same as appropriate, the attorney stopped. Dr. Shah added, that is why courts evaluate conflicts. No drama, just a boundary. When she stepped down, I understood something I had been too proud to admit. Protecting Mom did not require proving I was the better child. It required making sure neither child became more powerful than she needed us to be. The forensic accountant was next. Claire had retained him after the unexplained deposit, and several Jason Company payments were flagged during document review. He began with the easy part. Most of Mom's expenses were legitimate. Taxes, utilities, insurance, medical co-pays. Transportation. Jason had not been draining her account in the crude way people expect from a family financial case. Then Greer reached the payments to Jason's company. Were the transportation charges fabricated? No. Jason relaxed slightly. Were services provided? How did the rates compare with other providers? Base transport charges were generally within market range. The concern was additional coordination and management fees. How much? Approximately $26,000 over 14 months. Jason's shoulders stiffened. I had only seen 4 months. Were those fees authorized by a written service agreement? I was not provided one. Were they disclosed separately to Mrs. Brooks? I found no documentation showing that. Jason's lawyer stood. Lack of documentation does not mean lack of consent. Correct, that mattered. Greer did not claim fraud where he could only prove poor documentation and conflict. Then came the deposit I had found. What was this payment? Claire asked. Proceeds connected to the transfer of a parcel of land owned by Mrs. Brooks. I turned toward Jason. Land, not the house. Mom owned 6 acres outside Castle Rock that had belonged to my father. There was no house on it, just scrub grass, fencing, and a view my father used to call expensive before the county made it so. Was the parcel sold? Yes. When? Approximately 3 weeks before Mr. Brooks filed this petition. Jason's lawyer objected to relevance. Claire answered, The petition seeks conservatorship authority over remaining property. We are examining how existing authority was exercised. Overruled, the sale price was $270,000. A later independent appraisal placed the likely market range between $340,000 and $380,000. Jason's attorney stood. Appraisals are estimates. Course, Greer said, so you cannot say the sale was necessarily below fair market value. I would not use the word necessarily, again careful. Claire asked, who purchased the land? Greer named the LC I had found. Who controls it? Victor Lang. I knew the name now. Lang had helped finance 3 specialized vans for Jason's company. Was Mr. Lang a creditor of Brooks Medical Transit at the time? Yes. Did Mrs. Brooks receive the full sale price into her account? No, the courtroom changed. How much did she receive? $210,000. Do the closing documents account for the full difference? No. Did you find another document relevant to it? Yes, a credit memorandum issued by Mr. Lang to Brooks Medical Transit. Jason's face changed, not guilt, recognition, the moment something private becomes visible. Amount, $58,000. Jason's attorney requested time to review the exhibit. Claire handed it over. He read the first page, then the second. His expression became very still. I had seen that stillness in operations centers when the map stopped matching the route already approved. The judge granted 5 minutes. Jason followed his attorney toward the side room. Before he reached the door, Mom made a sound, J. He stopped, one of the clearest words she had spoken all day. Mom pointed at the document, then at him. Her fingers trembled. Why? Nobody answered. For once, Mom had asked the question herself. And nobody was going to translate it for her. During recess, I sat beside her. I placed the red hummingbird on the table because she had asked me to bring it that morning. She touched the chipped wing, then wrote, You knew? No, I knew about some fees and a strange deposit. I did not know about the land until today. She wrote, Jason? I don't know what he thought he was doing. That was true. The financial record was no longer asking whether Jason had been a good son. He had. It was asking whether somewhere between caring for Mom and saving his company, he had stopped seeing where one obligation ended and the other began. When court resumed, Claire said, We have additional documents connecting the land transfer to Mr. Brooks's business obligations. Jason's attorney stood. We will need context. The judge nodded. I looked at Mom, her hand beside the red hummingbird. For the first time since the stroke, nobody in that courtroom looked at her as if silence meant absence. And for the first time since I came home, I understood what victory had to look like. Not me taking Jason's place, not Jason losing everything. Mom getting enough of her own voice back that neither of us could keep borrowing it. When court resumed, Jason's attorney did what good lawyers do when the record changes. He stopped defending the easiest version of the story. Your Honor, my client does not dispute that Brooks Medical Transit received a $58,000 credit from Victor Lang. Jason looked at him. The dispute is over. Why? Claire stood. Then let's establish why. Thomas Greer returned to the stand. The credit memorandum was admitted, along with another document from Victor Lang's production. A side agreement, 2 pages, no dramatic heading, just business language. That was usually how the worst family decisions looked once they reached paper. What does this agreement do? Claire asked. It links the land transaction to obligations owed by Brooks Medical Transit. How? Mr. Lang's company purchased Mrs. Brooks's land. Separately, Mr. Lang agreed to apply $58,000 as a credit against vehicle financing owed by Mr. Brooks's company. Jason's attorney rose. Separately is important. Greer nodded. Yes, so the land sale contract itself did not say Mrs. Brooks was paying her son's company debt, correct. And the credit was not taken directly from her bank account. Correct, a useful distinction, not innocence, not theft. Structure. Claire asked, were the 2 documents executed on the same day? Yes, by the same buyer. Yes, was the credit contingent on closing the land transaction? Greer looked down. Yes, the judge wrote something. Did Mrs. Brooks sign the side agreement? No. Was it disclosed in her closing statement? No. Jason stared at the table. Claire turned to the next exhibit. At the time of the land transfer, what was the condition of Brooks Medical Transit? Greer opened his report. The company had approximately $184,000 in combined vehicle lease obligations and delinquent tax liabilities, requiring resolution within 45 days. Mom turned toward Jason. How many vehicles were at risk? 3 specialized wheelchair access vans. Employees? 9 drivers. A company is not just a number when 9 people depend on it. That did not make the money Jason's. It explained why he had found a way to stop seeing the line. Did the credit benefit Mrs. Brooks? Not directly. Did it benefit Brooks Medical Transit? Yes. Did Jason control that company? Yes. Jason's attorney crossed. Mrs. Brooks did receive $210,000 from the sale. Yes. Mr. Brooks did not deposit the $58,000 into his personal account? No. You found no vacations, luxury purchases, gambling, or personal consumption. No, the credit reduced debt on vehicles used for medical transportation? Yes, vehicles that also transported Mrs. Brooks? Yes, so there was a business purpose. Greer answered, there was a business purpose for Mr. Brooks, and perhaps a practical benefit to his mother. Perhaps that was the right cross. Jason had not bought a sports car. He had tried to keep his company alive. That made the next questions more important. Claire called Jason. The man who had spent 8 months telling everyone what Mom meant now had to explain what he meant. Did you know Victor Lang was financing your fleet? Yes. Did you know your company had $184,000 coming due? Yes. 3 vans at risk. Yes. 9 employees who could lose work. His voice tightened. Yes. Did you help arrange the land sale? Yes. Did your mother ask you to sell that parcel? She had talked about selling it before the stroke. That wasn't my question. No. Did she authorize the $58,000 credit to your company? She authorized me to handle her finances. Did she authorize that transaction? Jason looked at Mom. No, the word was quiet. What was your purpose? The company was going under. No one moved. I had drivers who had been with me for years. One has a son with cerebral palsy. Another's wife was in treatment. They weren't numbers to me. Claire let him continue. If I lost the vans, I lost contracts. If I lost contracts, I lost payroll. Then Mom loses the company that takes her everywhere anyway. You believe saving the company helped her? Yes. And you? His jaw tightened. Not evil. Not clean, human. Why didn't you tell Natalie? Because she would have said no. Why? Because she sees rules before people. Partly true. Why didn't you tell your mother? His face changed. I told her we needed to sell some things. That wasn't my question. He looked at Mom. For once he could not answer through her. I thought she'd say no too. Mom's eyes filled. Then whose decision was it? Jason stared at the witness rail. Mine. Claire moved to the petition. You filed for control over your mother's property 3 weeks after this transaction. Did you disclose the side agreement? No. The credit to your company? No. That the buyer was also your creditor? No. Why? Jason swallowed. Because I knew how it would look. How did it look? He closed his eyes. Like I used Mom's land to save my company. Nobody needed to improve that sentence. Mom lifted her notepad. You ask me? Jason read it. No, why not? He looked at her for a long time. Because I was scared you'd say no. Mom nodded once. Not forgiveness, understanding. Then she wrote my land. Yes, Jason said, then my no. His mouth opened, nothing came out. Claire stopped. She did not need another question. During the recess before closing arguments, Jason stood alone near the elevators. I stopped beside him. You happy? No. Could have fooled me. I didn't come here to destroy your company. You just did. You think Lang keeps financing me after this? I don't know exactly. The elevator doors opened. Neither of us moved. You got to leave, Jason said. Promotions, deployments, a career. Every time Mom needed something, I was here. I know, you always say that, because it's true. His voice cracked. Do you know what staying costs? This time I answered differently. No, I know what leaving cost me. I don't know what staying cost you. Some anger left his face. Not much enough, but whatever it cost, I said, it didn't buy Mom. I wasn't buying her. No, you stayed so long you started believing sacrifice gave you ownership. And you left so long you think showing up with questions makes you clean. That landed too. I'm not clean. For once, neither of us had a better weapon. What happens now? He asked. I don't know. You want them to give you control? No, he frowned. I don't want your place. Then what do you want? I thought about not yet. Dr. Shah, the hummingbird. Kabul, the 11 minutes at the hospital. I want neither of us to be able to turn loving her into permission. When we returned, Mom was already seated. The red hummingbird sat beside her water cup. She looked at both of us. For the first time in months, Jason and I did not rush to ask what she meant. We waited. The judge took 23 minutes. I know because I watched the clock instead of looking at Jason. When she returned, Mom sat straighter. The red hummingbird was still beside her water glass. The judge began with the part neither Jason nor I wanted to hear. Mrs. Brooks does require assistance. She cannot presently manage complex financial transactions independently, and certain medical decisions require support. Mom's fingers tightened around the table, but incapacity is not an all-or-nothing condition. Mom looked up. The evidence demonstrates that Mrs. Brooks can express consistent preferences regarding residence, personal relationships, routine care, and disposition of particular property when information is presented appropriately. Claire placed one hand near Mom's notepad, not on it. Near it, the court will not appoint either adult child as plenary guardian. Personal decision-making will remain with Mrs. Brooks to the maximum extent practicable, with limited support as recommended by Dr. Shaw. Mom exhaled, then came the money. The financial evidence raises substantial concerns regarding conflict of interest. Jason closed his eyes. The court is not making a finding today that Jason Brooks committed theft. However, the land transaction, undisclosed credit to Brooks Medical Transit, and recurring payments to an entity controlled by Mr. Brooks require independent administration. The judge turned a page. Mr. Brooks's authority over financial matters is suspended. A neutral professional conservator will be appointed pending full accounting and review of prior transactions. No gasp, no dramatic collapse, just the sound of a pen moving across paper. The judge looked at me. Miss Brooks, your objections brought legitimate concerns to the court's attention. But this court is not appointing you conservator either. I understand, you have demonstrated a tendency to equate vigilance with control. That hurt because it was accurate. Yes, Your Honor. The judge looked between Jason and me. Both of you love your mother. That is not the same as being entitled to govern her. Mom made a small sound. Mrs. Brooks, do you understand that someone independent will help manage your finances? Claire wrote the question in larger letters. Mom read it and wrote. Not Jason, then not Natalie. The judge almost smiled. That is correct. For once being excluded felt like success. The judge ordered that no sale of Mom's residence could occur without conservator review and a documented determination that it served her interests. Mom wrote something. Claire read it. Mrs. Brooks asks whether that means she can stay home for now. For now, yes, subject to safety planning. Mom smiled. Small, tired, real. Jason could still help with transportation and appointments, but any paid service involving his company had to be documented, market-based, and independently approved. He was not erased from Mom's life. He was no longer allowed to confuse being needed with having authority. When the hearing ended, Jason packed slowly. You got what you wanted, he said. I looked at Mom. No, she tapped the table. No win. Then underneath, stop lose, Claire read it aloud. No win. Stop losing. Mom pointed at Jason, then me, then herself. I crouched beside her. No, Mom, we didn't win. I touched the table beside the hummingbird. We stopped losing. Jason stood on the other side. Mom picked up the red bird and held it between both hands. Not mine, not Jason's, hers. It was the first decision of the day. Nobody needed to explain. 3 months later, Mom moved into a small assisted living apartment 10 minutes from her house. Her choices, not mine, not Jason's. The neutral conservator handled the remaining financial review. Jason's company survived barely. He lost 1 van. 2 drivers left, the other 7 stayed. He and I spoke when we had to. Sometimes twice a week, sometimes not for a month. We were not healed. We were simply no longer lying about where the wound was. On moving day, Mom directed everyone with a notepad from her wheelchair. Couch there, lamp left, no TV, bedroom. Jason obeyed without translating. So did I. Then she opened a small box. Inside was the red ceramic hummingbird. She held it up and pointed toward the new kitchen window. Jason reached for it. Mom pulled it back. He stopped. Then she pointed at me. I smiled. You. Mom looked offended. Good. She pushed herself closer to the window and placed the bird on the sill with both hands. The chipped wing faced the room. Nothing about it had been repaired. That was the point. For years, I thought protecting people meant anticipating every failure before it happened. Jason thought protecting them meant earning the right to decide, because he had stayed when everyone else left. Mom taught us something harder. Care is not ownership. Sacrifice is not authority, and silence is not consent. Before I left, she wrote one final sentence. Listen longer. I kept a photograph of those words, not the courtroom order. Not the old rank, those words, because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone you love is not speak for them. It is wait long enough to hear what they were trying to say. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needs the reminder that care is not ownership, and tell me in the comments which boundary your family learned too late. Some truths do not need a louder voice. Robert had asked if I was Major Brooks from Kabul. By then, I understood the harder question was whether I could stop speaking over Evelyn Brooks at home.